There's a certain charm to the Disney animations from the late 1930s and 1940s that seems to shine a bit brighter than their counterparts from the 60s and 70s. To understand why, we have to dig into the craft of animation and the historical context of these works. The Golden Age of Animation. Let's start with the Golden Age, which is basically when Walt himself was directly involved with production, and there was a strong emphasis on innovation and quality. During this era, movies like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Fantasia, Pinocchio, and Bambi came to life. Disney was committed to pushing the boundaries of what animation could be. Artists were encouraged to explore depth, emotion, and realism in ways that were unparalleled at the time. Budgets were generous, as Walt believed deeply in spending whatever was necessary to achieve his visionary standards. Every frame was a masterpiece of hand-drawn art, with attention to detail that often included sophisticated techniques like multiplane camera work, which gave extraordinary depth and richness to the scenes. The Experimental Era. As we move into the 60s and 70s, Disney was experimenting with different styles, often with simpler, less detailed backgrounds and character designs, partly due to changing artistic tastes, but also because of budget cuts. During this time, the company was without its founders' direct guidance, and it was looking for ways to remain financially viable after the expensive flops that occurred in the late 40s and 50s. Techniques like xerography were employed as a cost-saving measure, which allowed animators to bypass the inking process and directly transfer pencil sketches to cells. While efficient and novel, this resulted in a scratchier, less polished look compared to the lush, hand-painted feel of the earlier films. Nostalgia versus technology. We must also consider our rose-tinted glasses. We revere those early animations as revolutionary, while sometimes unfairly dismissing latter eras for not living up to the impossible standards set by their predecessors. Not to mention, advancements in technology always change the playing field, and what seemed modern and edgy then might look dated and rough to us now. Coming full circle. That's not to say Disney lost its magic touch in the 60s or 70s. We were graced with classics like The Jungle Book and The Aristocats, which presented a more playful, stylized animation resonant with the cultural zeitgeist of those times. However, like anything in the arts, the pendulum of style swings back and forth. Beauty, as they say, is in the eye of the beholder. Living here in Portland, Oregon, I'm constantly reminded of the flux of art and beauty. We've got such an incredible art culture that embraces both the traditional and the new. Whether it's street art that pops up overnight, or a meticulously crafted coffee shop that looks like something straight out of the 1930s, each has its own beauty, its own time, and its own place. Animated films are no different. They reflect their times, the goals of their creators, and the technology available. It just so happens that when you're looking back at the 30s and 40s Disney animations, you're also looking back at some of the most ambitious and well-funded art projects of the 20th century. That's hard to beat, even with the charm of the scratchy lines of the 60s and 70s.